Hey guys! Today's paint is from The Lion King, where Mufasa appears to Simba. You know, the remember who you are. Anyway, using Mehron white, start on your outlines. The inspiration for this paint is a beautiful piece by an artist on DeviantArt called Nemesis, which is linked below. I've also used screen caps from the film to help develop it into more of my own work. Using these references, I'm creating a copy of Mufasa's face. Take your time as you want to create as much of a likeness as possible. Also, draw the placement of the clouds and Simba in the bottom. Create the base layer of the clouds by adding various colours with a focus on lighter and brighter clouds near his face. I am using the white with Mehron yellow, orange and Kryolan's Youth red for this. Mix a very dark blue-black and shape your neckline and shoulders. My sponge went missing on the day, but I would really advise to use one for this paint. You can use a brush like myself, but you will require multiple layers to get to full opacity. Also, I used glitter 6 months ago and I'm still finding it. Anyway, for this I'm using Mehron Lagoon blue and black. Adding a little bit of blue into the black means that it's going to be more rich in tone, even if it is still extremely dark. Also, if you need, just add a couple more layers on the top. I also moved Simba a little bit, but we're going to come back to him anyway. Using purple, red and blue, start to blend the clouds into the black. We're just using this as a base colour and we will come back to these as well. First, block out the lightest areas of his face with white and then slowly start to add some darker colours. I'm looking at reference pictures a lot here to see where his natural highlights are and where the fur changes colour. I'm also doing a fair bit of mixing to create an organic feel to the fur, and I'm also looking at reference pictures of real lions. Make sure you shade underneath his mane with darker tones to create depth and shape his face. After the base colours are on, start by outlining his eyes and creating eyebrows with Mehron dark brown. I am also shading his nose and carving out his under eyes. You also want to focus more darkness on the right side of his face and begin working on his muzzle. Use eyeshadows to shade his face, adding darkness where it needs it the most. I used a fair number of shadows, mainly from the INGLOT Freedom system. If you scroll down to the description below, you'll see a product list of all the colours I used. Define his nose by drawing in some nostrils, and then smudge out his mouth and darken it in the centre with black. I also went back and deepened previous details. Add layers of highlight onto the nose, and then brighten around his mouth. Using eyeshadows and still looking at your reference pictures, shade with orangey brown tones. I'm looking a lot at the real line pictures for this part. Using white on a fine brush, make tiny hairs by flicking outwards. I'm mixing multiple shades of white and yellow to create variation. Continue this throughout the rest of the face, changing colours often and shaping and contouring it. We can then move on to the hair, where I start by mapping out the deepest points and then highlighting the waves. Using lots of thin brush strokes, focus on the darkest areas first and then slowly brighten in sections. Think about where the light would be coming from and brighten at the top of the waves. For this piece, the light is coming from the left, so I'm adjusting the highlights as such. I'm also using various colours like oranges and yellows in fine lines to create a bit of texture. Take your time and think about lots and lots of layers for this part. After fixing up the hairs in his beard, shade and define his ear that you accidentally forgot about. I would probably try and do this when you do the rest of his face. Using red paint, blend his hair into the clouds to make it look like they are coming out from him. Highlight then with white paint to map out where each individual cloud is. I find that the best way to paint clouds is to try and be as organic and abstract as possible, so that you don't overthink them too much. The only thing that you want to think about is just rounded shapes and trying to create the look of fluffiness. Using colourful eyeshadows, begin shading the clouds. I'm using a variety of pastels and brights to create varying levels of depth. Place some red in the clouds next to his hair to try and diffuse it outwards. Flick white shadow outwards using a fan brush to make light rays, and then use black shadow to deepen any patchy areas on the edges. Using INGLOT white gel eyeliner, further highlight the clouds and rays before adding sparkly pigments to create a little bit of interest. For Simba on the bottom, think about the same process to shade and colour him. I thought I was a little bit more zoomed out than I was, so my apologies, you can't really see what I'm doing. Just make sure that everything is highlighted in the direction of Mufasa's face, as he is Simba's main source of light. After final details, you're done. I hope you enjoyed this particular paint, and if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Thanks for watching.